My name is Ian, and this is my audience.
Annie waved.
HIV, malaria, tuberculosis. I want you to take a moment and consider these diseases and the effects that they can have on children worldwide. Now I want to tell you about a different disease which is actually responsible for more childhood death than those three combined. Today, more than 4,000 children under the age of 5 are going to die from common diarrhea. So diarrhea, something in this country we tell jokes about and we sing silly songs. And yet, World Health Organization, along with UNICEF, estimate that more than 1.5 million children will die every year by diarrhea, which makes it the second leading cause of childhood death worldwide. Now, I have had the opportunity to travel to developing nations such as the Philippines, Nepal, India, and see the actual effect of this disease. I have seen children in advanced dehydration from diarrhea die. But I've also gotten to see effective prevention and simple treatment work more often and save lives. So today I want to discuss first what is diarrhea and why it's so dangerous, and then look at some simple ways to prevent it and to treat it. And while this may not be applicable to people in this room, as a generation, we're more globally connected than any generation previously has been. And along with that, global awareness comes a responsibility to also be socially conscious of the needs of not just ourselves, but our world. So I hope that today we can also learn a simple way of how we can improve this world's condition. So let's look at the key elements, such as why is diarrhea so dangerous, and who's really at danger. Well, first, diarrhea is caused most commonly by gut infections, things like bacteria, parasites, viruses. It is classified as having 3 or more loose bowel movements a day. And normally that's where it stops in healthy children. But if it doesn't stop there, it will lead to severe dehydration. And from dehydration, if it doesn't stop there, it will lead to shock. And most of the time, from shock, it will lead to death. So, as a parent, why am I not fearful every time that one of my children have a loose bowel movement? Well, one thing that we have to understand is that the majority of these diarrhea-related deaths are happening in developing nations, places that are still very low resource, may not have access to basic medical care. Another factor we have to consider is malnutrition. And when a child is malnourished from lack of food, enough food and the right foods, then their immune system will become suppressed. And when a child's immune system is suppressed, they encounter these simple gut infections and are not able to fight them off. And that is how the progression continues to dehydration, shock, and eventual death. So the most important element is going to be prevention. What can we do to prevent diarrhea? Well, first, we can try to stop malnutrition. And if we stop malnutrition, we're going to boost immune systems. Second, we can go beyond that and try to stop the transmittance of this disease. Now, believe it or not, the most common way to contract diarrheal infection is going to be fecal matter to mouth. And that's what we have to stop. And our children have 101 different ways of getting poop into their mouth. Some simple ways that we can stop this transmission, though, is the use of toilets, where much of the world does not have basic toilets or outhouses. So they're using fields or water supplies such as streams, rivers, lakes. Another factor is teaching a community to wash their hands after every time they use the restroom, before they eat, and before they prepare food. A third factor to consider is to cover your food at the dinner table in any place that has a high infestation of flies, because the flies will find the feces Whether it is human or animal, they will land on it, and then they will come land on our food. And then the last and most crucial element is going to be clean water. We need access to clean water, which World Health Organization estimates today more than 1 billion people do not have access to clean drinking water. But even more than that, people have access to clean drinking water, which is being contaminated because they are not using latrines, toilets, or outhouses. So, obviously prevention is the most important element, but what about when we actually have to treat diarrhea? Fortunately, the majority of these instances do not need a diagnosis. We simply have to treat the dehydration, and then the child recovers. So one simple way to do that would be to use a oral rehydration solution. Just a packet you can mix in water and give as medicine to the child. But that is not always available. So I want to teach you how to make your own oral rehydration solution, which you can then teach anybody you encounter. Take a glass of water, use 3 fingers to pinch salt, put in the water, use 4 fingers to scoop sugar to put in the water. Mix that and serve it to the child every time that they have a loose bowel movement. By doing this, you are equipping their parents with an effective and economical way to treat diarrhea, not just this time, but any subsequent times that their child becomes sick. So, we've looked at why diarrhea is such a problem, but also how simple it could be to prevent it and to treat it. With this information, perhaps we can reduce the amount of unnecessary childhood deaths occurring from this disease. Hopefully we're also a little more appreciative of the resources that we have here, and we can be a little more socially conscious as global citizens. So this year, 1.5 million children will die from diarrhea. But with the spread of information such as this, maybe next year they don't have to. Thank you. Please show my audience again.
We're still here.